Alfred Nobel was born October 21st, 1833 in Stockholm, Sweden, the fourth son of Emanuel and Andrette Nobel. He had a good relationship with his parents and brothers and was very much attached to his mother. In later years, he would always visit her on her birthday. Alfred displayed a lively and intellectual curiosity from an early age. His great-great-grandfather, Olaf Rudbeck, was an architect, engineer, historian, botanist, composer, and professor of medicine who discovered the human lymphatic system. He was considered a technical genius. His father, Emanuel, worked as an architect and building contractor. His career in Stockholm had a brilliant start, but he was forced into bankruptcy in 1833, the same year that Alfred was born. He moved first to Finland and later to Russia, where his work included developing mines to block naval ships from threatening St. Petersburg. His mother, Andrette, and the children remained in Stockholm, where, with the help of her family's money, she opened a small grocery store. Emanuel's success in Russia allowed Andrette and their 3 sons to join him in St. Petersburg in 1842. A 4th son, Emil, was born in 1843. The 4 brothers received a first-class education with the help of private tutors. Emanuel sent Alfred abroad for further training in chemical engineering. In Paris, he met an Italian chemist, Ascanio Sobrero, who had invented nitroglycerin. Nitroglycerin was produced by mixing glycerin with sulfuric acid and nitric acid. It was considered too dangerous because it would explode if subjected to heat and pressure. Alfred was interested in how nitroglycerin could be put to practical use. Together with his father, Alfred performed experiments to develop nitroglycerin as a commercially useful explosive. Emanuel and Alfred returned to Stockholm, where Alfred concentrated on developing nitroglycerin as an explosive. In one explosion in a factory owned by Emanuel, his youngest son Emil and several others were killed. The authorities forbade further experimentation with nitroglycerin within Stockholm city limits, and Alfred had to move his experiments to a barge anchored on Lake Mälaren. To make the handling of nitroglycerin safer, Alfred experimented with different additives. He found that mixing nitroglycerin with kieselguhr turned the liquid into a paste which could be shaped into rods for drilling holes. He patented this material called dynamite. To detonate the dynamite, he invented a detonator which could be ignited by lighting a fuse. These inventions were used for diamond drilling and the pneumatic drill. All in all, Alfred Nobel held 355 patents worldwide. He also conducted research to create other chemical inventions, including synthetic rubber, leather, and artificial silk. In good faith, Alfred Nobel very generously sent his research findings to a man who used Nobel's knowledge and claimed it to be his own. Forced to go to court, Nobel lost the case due to poor representation by his attorneys. Of some consolation was the judge's statement to his opponent, "You are like the dwarf standing on the shoulders of a giant and seeing more than he does." Despite his brilliance, or perhaps because of his brilliance, he, like many future Nobel laureates, suffered harassment for his ideas and inventions. Nobel had, in 1873, at the age of 40, moved to Paris as a wealthy man. In 1891, he left Paris and moved to San Remo, Italy, due to a dispute with the French government over ballastite. Alfred Nobel spoke 6 languages: Swedish, Russian, French, English, German, and Italian. These language skills proved beneficial as, over the years, Alfred founded factories and laboratories in more than 20 countries. Nobel had many hobbies and interests, which would serve as the basis for the 5 prizes he would establish in his will. As a hobby, he wrote poetry and drama, and was known to say, "A recluse without books and ink is already in life a dead man." He was greatly interested in health. In his 20s, he had experimented on nitroglycerin and used it to invent dynamite. Later in life, when he developed a heart ailment, the doctor prescribed nitroglycerin as medicine. He remarked, "How ironical that I should have to take nitroglycerin internally." By this time, he had changed to a vegetarian diet, and made such statements as, "Worry is the stomach's worst poison," and "Contentment is the only real wealth." Another interest was peace. Bertha von Suttner, a friend and future Nobelist, talked to him regarding her peace movement. Alfred Nobel said to her, "Inform me, convince me, and then I will do something great for the movement." He was also interested in social reform. Among his contemporaries, he had the reputation of a liberal or even a socialist, constructing hospitals, housing, and recreational facilities for employees. An excellent administrator, he reduced the workday for his employees from 12 hours a day, which was the norm, to 10.5 hours a day. His employees came from faraway places, and when asked if being so far from home did not concern them, they would reply with pride, "We are Nobel employees." Alfred Nobel was a brilliant, lonely man. He suffered from a lingering heart ailment and died of a cerebral hemorrhage in 1896. By then his parents and all his siblings had passed away. He had not married. At the time of his death in San Remo, Italy, the only people with him were his servants, who did not understand him speaking in his native Swedish. He had always been generous in humanitarian and scientific philanthropies. He left the bulk of his fortune in trust to establish what came to be the most highly regarded of international awards, the Nobel Prizes, constituting a fund, the interest on which is to be distributed annually as prizes to those who, during the preceding year, have conferred the greatest benefit to humankind. His will specified that equal prizes should be given for the most important discovery in physics, chemistry, physiology, or medicine, and the most outstanding work in an ideal direction in the world of literature. A fifth prize would be for peace. To the person who shall have done the most or the best work for fraternity between nations, for the abolition or reduction of standing armies, and for the holding and promotion of peace congresses. A draft of his will ended with the prizes to be awarded to man or woman, evidence of his respect for women. Somehow this is missing in his final will, which left 31 million Swedish krona, about $265 million in 2019, to fund his prizes. In her 1906 Nobel lecture, The Evolution of the Peace Movement, Berta von Suttner stated that Alfred Nobel believed that social changes are brought about slowly and sometimes by indirect means, but Nobel also saw a shorter and more direct way before him. It could and should soon come to pass that all states pledge themselves collectively to attack an aggressor. That would make war impossible and would force even the most brutal and unreasonable power to appeal to a court of arbitration or else keep quiet.